Thematic games for our collection. Matthias is gonna go first. While he's grabbing his game, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and follow our channel.
10. Food chain magnate. So I don't know if I feel 100% like a food chain magnate, but I definitely feel like I have to be a cutthroat businessman with the some of the different kind of motions in this game. So what you're doing is you're setting down your board and you're trying to control your supply and your demand and the prices for the food that you're ultimately selling. So depending on the different players on the board, you're trying to either undercut them, you're trying to get a little bit closer, you're trying to market different products and throw off their businesses. So definitely has a very cutthroat kind of mechanism to it.
Absolutely. So for my number 10, it is a classic and favorite of mine. And I hope that's not skewing it, but it's Hotel Grand Austria. So you are getting guests coming to your hotel. You need to feed them. First, make them happy. Then you need to prepare a guest room for them. Get that guest into that guest room and close the door. So, to me, it's very thematic, but I also worked in the hospitality industry. So this theme is part of my heart. So for me, that is number 10.
I can see it because, like, if you have like a blue-colored guest, they want a blue-colored room. So guests can be picky on what they're eating, and if you don't deliver to them at the end of the game, you lose victory points. I can see it. I don't know if the Emperor track, which is in this game, completely is thematic, but the actual actions of feeding the guests and then putting them into their proper rooms, I can see it.
All right. At least someone can.
My number 9 is viticulture. It's between this and Vinos, but between the two, I think I find viticulture a little more thematic. And the reason for that is it has the different actions. It's just, we live in Niagara, Canada, and there's tons of wineries around us. So we kind of have a little bit of knowledge of wineries, not as much as all do. But within this game, you kind of have to wake up early, you have to tend your field, you have to age your wine, you have different barrels. I guess it can thematically somewhat come off the rails with some of the special power cards, but you're still kind of planting your certain kind of grapes. So I find it a very thematic game.
All right, we'll see if that ends up on my list.
That's a segue. I think it might make it there. I think it could do it.
All right, my number 9 is a game you don't hear too much about, but we actually truly enjoy this game, and it's Crystal Palace. It's based on the London's World's Fair, and it's all about the inventions and the inventors. And the reason I find that this game does really well with the theme is because you're trying to build publicity for your country, and you're trying to work your way up the black market to get different things. Then you're hiring inventors, you are buying different inventions. If you pair the right inventor with their actual invention, you score more points. So overall, from a theme standpoint, I find Crystal Palace kind of hits the nail on the history and information of that London's World's Fair.
That's another cool mechanic in the game, which I guess could be definitely thematic, is depending on when you bring out an invention, you get more points, which kind of makes sense because, if you're inventing something but it's already been invented or there's newer stuff, it doesn't look as good as it did 2 years ago. So
absolutely,
yeah, it was on the borderline of my list. I will segue into that is not on my list, but I was thinking about it. Something that my number 8 is something that nobody wants to really talk about or is tired of talking about at this point, which is a pandemic. Before, I don't know if this would have made the list, but just the way the world's working, you go and you think you've somewhat eradicated and sorted out some virus, and then unless you've completely taken care of it, here comes second wave and third wave. So you're going around and you're trying to figure some things out. So I think a couple years ago, maybe no, but now, solid number 8 for me on the list.
All right, yeah.
You don't even want to touch that.
I'm not even going there.
She's pandemic.
All right, I'm pandemicked out. I'm not going to lie. It didn't hit my list. Maybe it's because I'm over the pandemic. So, Duffers. This is a really cute little golf game. And the neat part is if you're actually into golf, different clubs go different distances. So whether it's a wood or whether it's an iron, you need to have a putter in order to complete the hole. Tees do certain things, different pieces of equipment, and you're trying to get your ball in the hole. Essentially, you're using clubs to get a ball into the hole. There are 9 holes. They change. So overall, I find Duffers to be very thematic.
Yeah, it's like a fun, exaggerated, Caddyshacky kind of view of golf, but it's definitely you're trying to get the ball in the hole. So it is thematic, I think. 7, we have the old version of Rococo, but I think the new one would apply as well. In Rococo, you are making dresses and gowns, and you're either renting or selling them back in, I don't even know what year France, but not current France. I definitely feel some of the thematic nature of this game where you're trying to get the certain kind of cloths, and you're just working your way up. You got to put people in different rooms. Why don't you help me out here? What else would you?
Yeah, so you're getting the right color material, then whether the dress has lace or needs thread, what do you need to make that? And then you have to have the right type of employees to actually sew that dress. It can't just be an apprentice making that dress.
So do you find it thematic?
I do find it thematic. I absolutely do.
Okay.
So for my number 7, I have agility. Now, again, Matthias is going to say, lightweight game. Absolutely. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you it's a heavyweight game. But I feel like I'm adopting a dog. I'm using treats to train my dog and to convince my dog to make its way through the obstacle course. End of the day, my dog goes from adoption to being trained, and I bribe him with treats to get through the course. To me, that's very thematic.
I don't find it super thematic, to be honest with you. I love the game. I like the mechanisms in it. I think it is somewhat thematic, but I wouldn't put it in my top 10.
Ooh, well.
Or my top 20. So I think it is kind of thematic. But if you haven't played it, get it. It is an awesome game. My number 6 is Mage Knight. So I as I'm just going over how agility doesn't feel like real life, I bring out a game about a knight that goes around different villages fighting orcs and pillaging along the way.
Considering I've never been allowed to play this is his solo-only game. Lisa, leave the room. I want to play a solo. I have no comment.
Well, now if we're going to get a little bit meta here, usually I have to learn the games, and then we kind of go over it a little bit, and I teach. Anybody that's played Mage Knight will know that really don't have to take the time to teach this game because there's so many little different side rules. This is definitely a labor of love. Amazing game. Probably my top 10 of all time, but super complex and a lot of just little like minutia rules. But from what the game has is you feel like you're this mage knight and you're just kind of starting out, and then you're just kind of growing in powers as the game goes on, and then you're storming a castle at the end. But you feel the overall presence and theme of the game itself. She's like, shit.
6. I have a brand new game called Chai Tea for 2.
Prototype.
This one is a prototype. I love the game from the standpoint that you're clipping tea leaves, you're getting the actual tea leaves. Then, especially if you're on the advanced side, you're moving your tea leaves along, you're oxidizing them into different kinds of tea. You can either package them into crates or load them onto ships, and then they are being shipped overseas. Well, let's be honest, our tea, at least here in Canada, isn't being grown here. That's what's happening. It's being processed, picked, processed, and delivered. And that's what you're doing in this game.
I think you like the B side of the board where they oxidize.
Absolutely.
Right?
The science node in me and coffee roaster in me loves the fact that you're not just taking a piece, putting it in a box, moving along. I actually get to do what's happening in that tea process where I'm oxidizing it, changing it into a different kind, and then doing something with it from there.
Number 5 is Twilight Struggle. So I don't know. I'm seeming to get into combative games or more thematic to me. I'm starting to see a trend here. Anyways, Twilight Struggle. You're either the U.S. or the USSR at the time, and you're essentially just battling across the world for global supremacy. So you are trying to go in and influence other countries and governments with all real world events with a different view on history. But nonetheless, you're also trying to make sure you don't go over a DEFCON track and then start a nuclear war. That wouldn't be good. So I definitely feel like a thematic tug of war going back and forth when we play this.
Absolutely. I will agree with you. This is a phenomenal representation of the Cold War. The codes are actual events that have taken place. And you start off the game with a realistic view of having more power in certain places. And then you really got to work to influence different places. So overall, I will give that to you. Not on my list.
Well, they do a good job in the
but
rule book.
It is a phenomenal game that makes you feel like you are at war.
In the rulebook itself, they have every card has a little write-up on what it meant and what it means. So you can go back and say, okay, card 32 in this certain event during this era, what actually happened here. So if you actually go back and read through that, then you can start to understand some of the things that were happening during those times. That, I think, adds to some of the thematic nature of the game.
Mine is Star Wars Rebellion. I was not a Star Wars person whatsoever until The Mandalorian came out on Disney+. And then I went down a rabbit hole.
Is Baby Yoda in here?
And took a deep dive down the Star Wars path. And we ended up finding this at a con and decided to jump in and give it a try. And I have to say, from a thematic standpoint, this game does a really, really good job of making you feel like you're within one of the movies. So for me, the gameplay, the minis, the map makes me feel like I am off in the world of Star Wars.
Yeah, they call it Star Wars in a box. So you definitely have the feel if you're trying to either be the rebels and mess up the Empire's plans, or you're the Empire and you're trying to capture the rebels. So either side you're playing, you definitely have that feel.
Awesome. What's next for you?
What number? My number 4 is Cloudspire. I don't even know if I want to lift this game up fully. This game is so heavy. This must weigh like 20, 30 pounds. So, Cloudspire, it's probably following along my lines of like Mage Knight, which is funny because I don't ever read any kind of fantasy stuff, but the games I play apparently fall within that. Within Cloudspire, you are one of a number of different, are they races? What are they technically? Factions. Trying to basically gain this thing called Source in whatever land that they're doing this in. Ankar, I think, is the name of the place. But the different factions play differently, and they have different motivations. And when you're playing the game, everything is asymmetrical depending on almost every character you have. So the rules overhead is a beast. But you definitely feel like you're going through you're playing within this world. Within the base box, they have stories before everything. We have a different version where they have essentially these playthrough novel books. And these have a lot of different stories of the different factions. So once you really get into the game and the mechanics and then the lore of it, you really feel like you're kind of in this world.
I have to say, before we play, we were playing the solos as a co-op. And I had to read that story before we got into the game, because then it was a battle. The heirs were attacking my Grove Tenders, let me tell you, I wanted to know what was happening, why it was happening, and I was in full battle mode. So I will agree with you. This has a phenomenal theme, and the lore Chip Theory has done with the graphics and the stories to back up every faction, and every faction interaction that they have developed, and the skirmishes is to a T for theming.
For sure. If you just go back to our YouTube channel, we have an unboxing of the update packs, which includes the book.
Yeah.
And we have a full review for this.
My number 4.
This box on the table.
He had number 10.
Oh.
I brought it all the way up to number 4 because as a business teacher, I find that this game does a phenomenal job simulating how a business would try to expand, how a franchise would go out and attack their competition and really get in there. They're going to market over top of them. They're going to try to produce more food, be quicker, provide better service. And in the end, annihilate their competition. And that's what you're doing in Food Chain Magnate.
Yeah, I think you did a better job explaining it at 4 than I did at 10, but yeah, no, you definitely feel like she's coming for my business or who everybody else is at the table. Watch out.
Let's be honest.
Lisa's
it's
coming.
A bit cutthroat.
Yes.
I will give it that. Didn't expect that.
My number 3 is Comanchinera by GMT Games. This is a solo-only game by Joel Toppin, who's like one of the better developers and just producers out there that kind of flies under the radar. In this game, you are playing as the Comanches in Comanchinera to start, and then what becomes the U.S. The way that this game feels thematic, in the rule book, they kind of state, okay, go and read a couple of these books before you play, or at least they recommend it, and you can get more of the context. So I did that. And within this game, you really feel like, okay, I'm the Comanchinera, I kind of had the plains, but here comes all these different people, and they have their new technology, and they're essentially trying to come from my culture. So one of the interesting things within this game is you're trying to keep your war mechanism up, but you're also trying to maintain your culture and really what makes you you. And within the game, there's 4 different eras, and you start and you're really powerful and strong, but by the end, you're fighting so many battles on so many different fronts, and they're really coming after for who you are and trying to change things. So from just a straight thematic standpoint, you can definitely feel that tug and pull.
Awesome. Well, as he said, it's solo only, so that is a Matthias game. My number, what are we at now? 3 is right here. The Beast of a Box, Cloudspire. For everything that Matthias said, I just love the lore and the story and the thought they put behind everything, and it really feels like you're marching your chips into battle, and battle, have it, you are going down if you are the other faction.
Yeah, nope, it's you feel it. You feel
All
that
right.
world, which is Star Wars, an existing IP, whereas Cloudspire, they created their own IP, and you feel it. So, yeah, everything I think we said about Star Wars holds true. The different factions play differently, and you just feel like you're kind of playing the movies. So, amazing thematic game. Really nothing I can say poorly about.
My number 2 from a theme standpoint
Your box
is...
is sideways.
I because otherwise I'm not in it, is Vinos. And the reason is you are building up your estates and you are dealing with weather issues. You are dealing with, if you have farmers, you are going to have a better production. If you have a winery on your estate and you have an oenologist, you are going to be able to have a better wine because you have people who are trained to make that better wine. Then you have to export it, or you have to sell it locally. You can take your wines to to a fair to have them judged, and if they're judged higher, it's worth more points. So to me, overall, it is very thematic, and it feels like you may not be planting the grapes like you are in viticulture, but you are buying your different estates, and you're building up those estates to produce the best quality wine.
Yeah, I can see that from a business standpoint. This would feel more thematic than viticulture. In viticulture, I feel like I'm more of a winemaker. Maybe I'm an employee. I'm the head winemaker at a winery. In Vinos, you feel like you're the owner of the vineyard, and maybe you're making more of the decisions with the press releases, trying to get the judges to like your wine. So in the future, you have more cred with the market to sell your wine in the future. So I can definitely see the argument. I think both are great. I don't think you'd be wrong either way.
All right. Well.
My number 1 is surprising Lisa, apparently. Cerebra, the Inside World, which some people say is just kind of based off the Pixar movies Inside Out, I think.
Yes.
So within this game, it's a very complex game, and it can be combative yet again. You are either basically, I'm trying to think, they have gloom, and they have...
And bliss.
Gloom and bliss. So you're basically your happy side of your brain and your not so happy side of the brain. But you're just going around the board and you're trying to control your emotions. You're also trying to get in the way of the competing powers. You're taking off the little...
Yeah, you're taking off the essence, and you are basically trying to remove the cards of the other emotion. So it's kind of this tug of war. There are different goals in this game, and really and truly, you want your emotion to win. So if you're gloom, you want this to be a very gloomy board.
Yeah,
if you're happy and excited and blissful, you want this to be a pink and peach board, and you want to be glowing.
Yeah, and some of the characters, there's 4 different characters. So there's like love and empathy and delight and on the happy side. So what you're trying to do is those are more like they play nice with others. You get like, you know, if you're beside another one of your own power cards, get a +1. And then the other characters on the gloomy side are like hate. And you're basically just trying to get rid of other people. There's other ones that are like lonely. It's just like, leave me alone. I don't want a character on either side of me. So you kind of feel that throughout the game that you're either trying to just be happy or be sad, and then just kind of control your whole ego that way.
Yeah, and the powers really fit with whatever the name of the card is. Yeah. So like you said, lonely, they don't want anyone.
But awesome game, heavy rule set, but it's worth the time effort.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is an underrated game overall.
Oh, completely.
Yeah. So my number 1 is viticulture. Now, this might be because we live in a wine area and I love wine-themed games, but I really feel like, as Matthias said, it's different than Vinos. Vinos might be the more economical simulation. This might be more the agriculture simulation, but you're planting your fields. You need to pick your grapes. You need to age your grapes in your cellars. You need to make your different kinds of wines, and then you need to fulfill contracts. Overall, I find very thematic, and I also love the theme, so it just helped raise this one up to that number 1 slot.
There you go.
And that was our top 10 favorite thematic games. If you like this video and want to see more from us, hit the subscribe.